Hey everybody, this is Tim with Op-Ed Daily. So I'd like to talk a little bit about conspiracy theories. A lot of the videos that I do are met with some pretty angry responses. And angry because they believe I'm just a tinfoil hat nutbag or some other sultry name. I don't mind being called names at all, but what does bother me is the fact that many people will just completely dismiss anything that you say if they think what you're saying is a, quote, conspiracy theory. They won't even give it a second thought, even if what you're saying makes a lot of sense. So for that reason, I think it's necessary to talk about one of the craziest conspiracy theories that went around back in the 60s and 70s that turned out to be true. This conspiracy theory was called MKUltra, or mind control experiments. Now, MKUltra was a program, a CIA program, that experimented on people largely without their permission and without their knowledge even, for the purposes of finding ways to control people's minds. And this happened during the 50s and 60s. And LSD was used quite often in these experiments because the researchers then thought that LSD would be that mind-controlled drug that would open up a lot of possibilities. If you've ever seen the movie Manchurian Candidate, that's exactly what they were going for with these experiments. Now, the conspiracy theories became prolific after the lawyer of the man that assassinated Robert Kennedy came out and said he had been under the influence of the CIA's MKUltra program. But of course, back then, if you believed that, people would dismiss everything that you said because you were a conspiracy theorist. Oh, he's just a nutbag. Don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But then, in 1977, a FOIA request revealed 20,000 documents detailing the top-secret MKUltra program, which was then investigated through Senate hearings. Now, 20,000 documents seems like a lot, but that was only the tip of the iceberg. You see, in 1973, when the Watergate scandal really started breaking open, the CIA thought it was best to go ahead and destroy all of the MKUltra documents, which they did. But what they didn't realize was that 20,000 of the documents had been accidentally stored in a financial building elsewhere, and those were not destroyed. But in 1977, they were uncovered and they were leaked to the media, and then a shitstorm happened. Now, during the hearings, the CIA director, Stansfield Turner, gave up the names of 185 private researchers and 80 institutions that conducted abhorrent CIA mind control experiments during the 50s and 60s. Now, Turner claimed to be disgusted by the experiments, and he claimed that no such program existed at the time of the Senate hearings. But some of the things that they found in those documents were disturbing. And then they tried to pin all of that on the researchers in colleges around the country that had received funding through the CIA in order to do these experiments. But those researchers didn't necessarily even know that they were a part of this big scheme of things to find ways to control people's minds. They didn't know. They were simply doing research that they were paid to do by the CIA. Now, they would do things like create a fake brothel and install a one-way mirror where they would record an interaction between a John and a prostitute. But before that happened, they would spike the drink of that John and then record his interaction with that person and see how it affected him. And this went on and on and on for years and years. This happened. And keep in mind, this is probably one of the least heinous things that MKUltra program had done to people. But these are just some of the things that they found out within those documents. Another thing was they would find volunteers by going and getting heroin addicts and enticing them into the program by offering them more heroin. And several people have died under the direct influence of the MKUltra program. Now, one of those deaths is actually a conspiracy theory within a conspiracy theory. Frank Olson was a United States Army biochemist and biological weapons researcher, and he had been given LSD without his knowledge or consent back in November of 1953 as a part of this CIA experiment. And then a week later, was found dead under suspicious circumstances. The official story was that he committed suicide by throwing himself 13 floors to the ground. But the family of Olson, they don't believe that for a moment. They believe that once he found out the CIA had drugged him, he threatened to divulge the entire thing to the media, and that's when the CIA dispatched him without prejudice. Now, if we know now that the MKUltra program is fact, and it is kind of a weird thing that they would do this, then it's not really a stretch to believe that they killed this man to try to keep it a secret. Wouldn't you agree? Surely you would. And that's kind of my point here, is that just because you want to mark something up as a conspiracy theory doesn't mean you get to ignore facts. It doesn't mean that you get to ignore discrepancies in stories. Just because you don't want to believe that your government is doing some pretty messed up things to its own citizens, just because you don't want to believe that doesn't mean that it isn't true. And I think it's important that we all keep an open mind when it comes to these things. And I will make a promise to all of the listeners out there that if I ever say anything that isn't fact-based and it's more of a speculative assumption or assertion, I will let you know. I won't tell you anything in a factual manner that I came to under conclusion by making connections elsewhere. But if it's fact, it's fact. This MKUltra, it's fact, and they did some pretty gnarly things. And it's funny that one of the outcomes that they wanted from the MKUltra program was to be able to give somebody a drug that would cause them to basically go crazy so that they could discredit them. That was one of the main goals for the MKUltra. And just think of how many times we've seen that happen over the last 20 years. And just think of how many drugs they have created based upon these psychoactive experiments that they did with the MKUltra. I can imagine SSRIs were discovered around this time, and it probably came from those experiments. It's not unlikely that the psychoactive medication that the government is shoveling down everybody's throats is the direct result of the MKUltra's successful finding of a drug that would basically turn everybody into walking zombies. Whatever. Now, see, that's speculation, but it's also not too far-fetched given the information that I just gave you. So that's all for now. There are a lot of other conspiracy theories that have become true. I just want everybody to realize that. There are a lot of them. And over the next few days, I will do videos over those and talk about them at some length. If you want to hear more about those, hit the subscribe button. If you know of any other crazy conspiracies, please, let's hear about it in the comments section. But for now, this is Tim with Op-Ed Daily. Peace out.